All right. Good morning. It's January 19th, and I think it's time for Pomodoro number 4. So, yeah, almost messed up this morning. I thought I wasn't going to be able to do this because I had a meeting right away, and then time zones. So, I actually do have an hour until my next meeting, so I thought I'd hammer this out here. I don't know how many times I'm going to do this in a row, if I'm literally going to end up doing it every single day, but so far I think that it's helping me think and helping me kind of get things out there. So, yeah, overall, the announcement went out yesterday that I am swapping over to variety content, and that was generally well received. It's obviously not the most popular video that I've ever put out, but I've put it as the channel trailer as well, so it'll just be a video that has a pretty long lifespan regardless. And it's got the links to the two communities that I've been building, Port Zero and Pico, the Overwatch coaching project. So when I'm talking about things like creative locking, that was kind of like a big milestone that was cleared yesterday. So just to reiterate, like creative locking meaning that my ability to brainstorm or plan or predict the future, whatever it is hindered by something that I have planned or I want to or I'm going to do but haven't done yet. It's like I can't see past this moment in time. Maybe for whatever reason, maybe it just requires that it be done or something. So I don't know. I don't know why I can't see or plan past certain moments. But either way, now that we've passed that, it's kind of been very, very liberating because that was a big step, and now I can start to uh, think more about the actual content that I make myself. So, it's like watching my own Hades video back. It's like now instead of worrying about variety, I can actually work on trying to actually make better videos while variety. Because, the video that I put out uh, today, which was a Hades speed run. It was technically impressive or at least notable. It wasn't, world record pace or anything like that, but that was kind of like a yes, I'm good at this game sort of moment. And then we'll have to kind of see. We'll try out the trial tomorrow, and then uh, we'll go from there. But I think that regardless of what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have to try and be a lot more entertaining during it. But I think that if I'm reducing the amount of anxiety that I have around content creation or really anything, I think that's what's going to cause me to be able to be the best performer or entertainer that I can be. So I really need to kind of actively work on not only reducing my anxiety, but potentially just removing any anxiety type sources. So why is that there? Um, I never press start again. Look at me. All right, so 22. We'll go to 22. But yeah, so that like with the businesses that I run, um, there's a lot of stuff that I still personally do, and I think that I want to start trying to offload more of the administrative tasks. But I need to find somebody that I can trust for that, like a business administrator or an executive assistant of some variety. But even kind of like finding somebody like that is going to be challenging enough, and then even after that, it's going to be bringing them up to speed. But just like talking to lawyers, talking to accountants, doing like HR and payroll and things like that. A lot of that stuff is very time consuming and stressful. Um, and, sometimes I have like a coping mechanism where if I know that I can't get anything done because I just have too much anxiety, the like, I almost want to say worst case scenario, is that I can at least press start streaming and go live. It's like, if the anxiety is so bad that I'm kind of paralyzed and can't get work done, or can't like unfuck my thoughts or anything like that, at least I can stream for a bit because that's always something good and valuable to do is to actually stream and make content, but it doesn't lead to the highest type of content or the highest quality of content or the most entertaining content is when, primarily when I'm going live is when I have a large amount of anxiety. So yeah, but I've been brainstorming a lot about the different kinds of content that I want to make with Port Zero. So, uh, oh, Port Zero content ideas. So, uh, And then, so the two kind of pieces of content that I was thinking of making were interdimensional radio and then anywhere but here. And I wanted some very, very small content ideas that we could just use and build on and try and have them kind of as small a scope as possible, but still something with a lot of potential. So if we're kind of, I'll just kind of write down some inspirations here. Hello? Why is enter working as shift tab? Weird. Okay. So there's like the Wandering Inn. There's Midnight Diner. There's a few other types of. Oh, there's like Welcome to Night Vale. Night Vale. I think those are the ones that I can remember right now. But interdimensional radio, I would think, would be kind of somewhere between, I would think, 30 minutes to 120 minutes of a radio talk show. And there's some things that you could do here, like you could have user submitted and created music. You could have news segments and weather segments or something like that. You could have a episode guest. Or what is it? Kind of like what's the name for like a figurehead, or like somebody who does talking points? Spokesperson, pundit. I think it's pundit. And then you could also have callers, or audience and callers calling into the show. So I think that this is something that could be really interesting, especially if you had somebody being like the host. They could have a co-host, you could have a guest, and then you could have callers, and it would be around basically like this, talk radio show or something, where occasionally you'd have you'd have like 15 minutes to 30 minutes of talking or something, and then be able to play a song or something like that. But I think that this would really kind of help people learn more about the entertainment thing, the talent side of things, role-playing thing, and then you'd also have some content that you could actually put out onto like a YouTube channel or something like that. So that's kind of the first idea, and that's the simplest one. And then anywhere but here would be a much like a much more complicated version, where it's kind of like a virtual reality role-playing show thing. So anywhere but here, I was thinking, again, more along the lines of like Wandering Inn, Midnight Diner, Welcome to Night Vale, is basically that it's like a bar or a tavern that is, an interdimensional, location. So it doesn't have a specific setting, but people from any settings can come to this bar or tavern, whether they are from contemporary Earth, whether they're from a fantasy world, a cybernetic world, a future world, any kind of world, doesn't matter. Anybody from any setting can come to this bar or tavern and kind of interact and tell their stories. And I thought that kind of like, I wanted to make a rules of the story kind of thing, where you'd have things where there were certain rules to like, what was it, like Roadrunner? And then I know that one of the other rules was from Fairly Odd Parents. And then some of this stuff was that like there would have to be certain rules. Inspiration. Where some of the rules would be that the name of the tavern, we could go with like inn or like motel, inn, motel, something like that. Would be the anywhere but here inn or motel. And then with that, the premise around it would be that, it's like this inn, I don't know what we'll call it. This place doesn't have any kind of like physical location, but it wanders around and it finds people who want to be, quote unquote, anywhere but here. Finds people who want to be anywhere but here. So for example, let's say examples given, it would be like someone running away from a pursuing army through a wooded area. And then I don't know if they would teleport into the inn, into the motel. Would they find a door in the forest? I don't know how it would happen. But then they would like arrive at the bar and it would provide them refuge, provide the individuals who find the inn motel refuge. So with that, they would obviously like no, I mean nobody. So the idea here is that you're collecting this like ragtag group of people and characters who have different stories. And then to start with, I think that people just verbally tell stories about themselves, their worlds, and their situations. But later on, you could actually go on D&D style role-playing campaigns to help the individual solve their problem. Because it's like one of the rules, I suppose, would be everyone eventually has to return to their real world. So I'm thinking again in this situation where they're running away from the forest or running away from somebody who's chasing them. Let's say that it's like a slave who has escaped while there was this caravan or like convoy going through the woods, and they're running away, they're being chased, they're going to be killed or captured or whatever it is, and they just find this place and then just stumble into it, and they're like, oh my god, where am I, sort of thing. So they'll they'll tell the patrons and the bartender about who they are, the world they're from, the situation they're in, but like, the moment that they, for example, left, everyone has to, time is frozen in their real world, or they always return to the exact moment that they left. So let's say that, they either need to go, you could have some people just return to their world alone to face the music, having kind of, you could have this where the problem is solved through character development, or the problem is solved through a campaign. Where if somebody kind of is running away here from, like, let's say a breakup or something like that, a really bad breakup, then the patrons and the bartender, they might be able to kind of just like confront their problems in a safe space where they can talk about it and other people can provide advice. And then when they feel comfortable and confident, they can just like return to their own world alone. But in the situation where there's like an escaped slave or something like that, it's like you could actually do some sort of campaign. Like it's a fantastical fantasy world where there's an evil lord, whatever sort of thing, and then you could actually, through virtual reality and like VR chat, you could build that VR world, and then you could have NPCs played by actual people using virtual avatars in a virtual world. So I think that would be a really cool thing to do. And then I think that additionally there's something in here around so agency as art is, again, an idea that I'm playing with. So I think that the role, like, the chat has to be some sort of character. And this is one of the things that I really like from Wandering In and a few other stories, is that they could be more of like the Fae, like playful, mischievous spirits. And then so you could have, I don't know, like, I think that chat has to be some sort of character where either like TTS could be the voice of God, where it plays in the world. And then either characters acknowledge the voice, or just have to do what it says without ever acknowledging that they can hear it. So this would be more kind of improv sort of thing, where it's like, whose line is it anyway? Whose line is it anyway? Where the moderator shouts out a change to the scene. For example, chat could donate that, Miranda started acting extremely suspicious as so-and-so tried to creep around behind to smack Todd in the face and steal his wallet, right? So if Chad donated that, was like, could you, would characters acknowledge the voice? Or would they just have to do as they said, as if chat or the audience basically controlled the fundamental rules of the world? And then additionally, some part of this would have to be scripted or planned. But for example, like the NPCs, would there be some sort of DM controlling the NPCs or guiding the players themselves? Would the campaigns be completely improvised, or would the talent performers collaborate and have a rough idea of what was going to happen during that episode that they could use as a framework for the show? So this is kind of some of the things that I think about, and I think that interdimensional radio is a good start that will kind of like serve as a building block to creating Anywhere But Here. And I think that this can help kind of construct the worlds where Port Zero was initially going to play in. Because, interdimensional radio could be just like a radio talk show that is just, it's broadcasting across space and time. So it's like you could have people from, the Norse era, like medieval Gaels and Nords. For example, I think it'd be hilarious to have a guest show up who was just like believed in gods and spirits, or was like, Jillian Jane's bicameral mind era individual, who felt like they were being tested by their gods, or like didn't understand radio, not just present and future, but I think previous as well. Or even have, like, you could have hilarious gags, like cavemen calling in or something, like a caveman accidentally finds some way to tune into, interdimensional radio. And I think that shit would be hilarious. And then, like, weather, for example, or like you could have instead of like, what is it, human interest stories? You could have like interdimensional interest stories, where it's kind of like, well, in the lands of Falahun, the Navahuk have overthrown the leaders, and you're just like, tell stories, like tell little 30-second short stories about places that don't exist, just kind of like, or users have been the most interesting things, like, the Queen of Hapland is sleeping with the Prince of Almany. But obviously create the world and make the stories actually kind of funnier, kind of like the stuff that you would see on, like Not the Onion, for example. Not the Onion subreddit or something like that. And I think that would be a pretty good chance to like parody real events, real news events, and things of that variety. So I think there's a lot of potential here. Obviously, I think that, start with the smallest scope as possible. I think doing like a weekly interdimensional radio show with like one host to start, then add a co-host, then add a guest. It's like add these pieces one week after another until we really start building out a show that kind of, we don't want to plan it out too rigorously. We just want to start making something. So I think like the first week we should aim for a 30-minute show. And then the next week, as we want to add things out, just kind of like let that build out into something that we could really, really enjoy and have people create characters. I think that it would be important, at least to start, to just have these characters be specifically created for this show, but I think that it would be a lot of fun. So that's kind of where my head is at in terms of content. Where we would actually put it out, I think it would have to be on the Port Zero YouTube channel. I think that it's important that it not exist on any of my content, just because that would mean that I get the revenue from it. So I think that it'd be something that we can grow out more grassroots, and then be more experimental with it without actually having to please an audience for anybody else that's not just ourselves. So, fey or mischievous, deceptive spirits. Yeah, I think that just in general, not just with this kind of content, obviously this is the kind of content that I'm thinking right now, but just, along with Guess My SR, for example, and, oh, Stamp Crackle Pop. Like Guess My SR is an interesting one because it has kind of like the basis of this audience has agency over the art itself, like the entertainment or the stream, whatever you want to call it like that. And I'm not doing Guess My SR anymore, but like I think that because I think that like, Guess My SR is liked because of this. There's a lot of things that go into Guess My SR. And then, but I think that an audience agency, and it's like when you're talking about like interactivity and engagement, people always want, it's like, it's meaningful engagement. That's really what it is. Meaningful engagement. It's not like talk and chat, like this, comment on my post, do these arbitrary things that kind of just like have, what is it? This is kind of going back to like when the measure, do I not have this quote in here? Wow. Hold on a second. That is a very important quote, and I don't have it in my note system. Interesting. When the measure becomes the target, it ceases to be a good measure. It's Goodhart's Law. Goodhart's Law is an adage named after... Yeah, it's Goodhart's Law. And again, I am still building out the like rules page on my system. Goodhart's Law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. So this is the sort of thing where I think that because we're trying to measure engagement, we're coming up with like a simulacra of engagement instead of trying to make engagement actually meaningful. So I guess this is a question of kind of like what I mean. There, now we can do that. Just like, what is a meaningful measure? What about, would it be watch time? Completion rate? What is the hardest metric to achieve or maximize? Or what is the most holistic metric for content? What about a percent engagement? Percent engagement? Not raw numbers. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking here. But I do like the idea that an audience has not only meaningful engagement but also a meaningful impact or interactivity with the content. And so this is kind of the stuff that I'd like to experiment with a lot more, where I think that passive content is on the way out. Like the passive consumption of content is on the way out, and the active participation in content is on the way in. And how does this relate to fandoms? I think one of the big open questions for me is kind of what creates a community or collective or network of fans that actually prompts or inspires people to write fan fiction or draw fan art. I guess it's kind of like, what are the characteristic factors of a community that creates creative works spontaneously? Is it encouraged? What is the critical mass tipping point spark? I don't know. So this is just kind of like, I should think about this a little bit more seriously, but where are we at? Okay, I think that's good for now. All right, I got a lot of notes. That wasn't very structured, though. I'm going to have to actually compress that and put it into my notes in a much more structured way, but good thoughts for now. Good thoughts for now. All right, see you tomorrow.